Good morning, noon, evening or night, depending when you're watching this video. My name is Legend and welcome back to World of Tanks and the greatest of games, featuring some of the best moments of certain great games. And first we are watching... Who else? You know him, you love him. I don't know if you love him, it sounds a bit weird to be honest. But of course it's the big T in the turtle one. And yeah, of course, when you are banning someone from the NBTT'ay replay series, eventually those replays automatically will be filtered down into the greatest of games. Because, well, banned or not banned, he still is able to have reached the most experience earned of, well, several patches in a row. So a couple of these games I will be featuring him here. But I thought by myself, by quickly glancing over them, I mean, it's just the Turtle Mark 1. It's been massively buffed. It's just a broken tank pretty much on tier 8. So of course you can just go into the position, bounce every shot, shoot back, destroy enemy tanks and then move on and repeat the process. However, when closely analyzing these two replays of Tobie, there are still some interesting elements to be found in these replays that can, well, teach you something, just next to the turtle just being massively overpowered in certain situations and, well, just holding W, bouncing shot and return fire. And we start off by this location in Alalo, which, well, normally isn't really occupied that much for a very good reason. You might think, what's the reason? Well, you might see an absence of a certain tank type in this game. Of course, I'm talking about artillery. If Tobie would have gotten to this location with artillery in play, he would probably already been lost, well, a quarter of his health by several arty shots that were, well, that he can be easily hit by standing in the open. However, with the absence, this location now becomes a very potent location that can cover several corners on this flank. And of course, Tobie knows this and takes full advantage of it. Now at some moment he realizes that the CS is out of that central location, so he's able to take that central location for himself. Now if he did that while the CS was still there, could also be an option. However, there could still be the threat that the enemy tanks would just YOLO in. Seeing that Tobie was occupied with the CS, they will see an opportunity in order to flank him and destroy him. So very good to have waited in that case, even though the CS could be potentially isolated from the rest of his team and it would be pretty much a free kill for Tobie. But that threat was non-existent when he is just able to move up, having nothing to worry about potential flanking, because he still got some teammates backing him up. And then the enemies will simply won't go forward because they don't find it valuable to rush into a high DPM Turtle Mark 1 without the Turtle Mark 1 being distracted by anything. And at this location, in this close range brawl against the TS-54, he is actually sniping very correctly at this small weak spot on the turret of the TS-54. A weak spot which, well, most people might know, might not know, but now you know that's a weak spot. At close ranges, it's a viable target. After that, he moves up and he perma-tracks the stock AMX 65 ton, going for the front tracks there. With the fast reload of the Turtle Mark 1, he cannot repair his tracks in time. But against a stock AMX 65 ton, I mean, that's just cyberbullying at this moment. Yeah, that is still a bit of the, well, moving forward and just wrecking enemies. However, he does mistake to peek a bit too much towards the ISU right here. But the game is pretty much won and he has still enough hit points in order to take that shot. But it left him on a one shot though. So he has to play a little bit more careful, especially against those last Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträgers. Now, when engaging those tanks, he correctly switches towards HE in order to do extra damage, confirming the kill with 2 shots on that one Waffenträger. Almost get destroyed, but well, armor, I guess. So yeah, that's the elements that were actually just the tank being strong. And on top of that, that is the second fire he's able to take this round one against the T-34-3 earlier on, and again against that last Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger. So yeah, at a glance it really looks like just moving forward and just blasting enemies while receiving minimum damage because of the high armor value. However, several choices has been made that elevated this game from a what would be an average on these situations like 4,000, 4,500, but he's elevating it over 7,000 because of several good choices that he made, taking up a position that is normally not safe, but since there's no artillery, it is a very strong and viable location. Going forwards, not taking the risk of potentially incentivizing the enemy team to outflank him and YOLO him. Weak spot sniping, that's pretty standard, but against a TS-54 it's well quite remarkable to find those, because those are not that apparent. Perma-tracking a tank confirms even more damage, and switching to HE just adds on that little bit of extra. I think the combination of all of these choices, alongside with the turtle being the turtle, Tobie is able to deal around an extra 2,000, 3,000 extra potential damage than if he would just go towards a standard location and just stay there and well, maybe even stay all the way back, but well, he's not that kind of player. And for that reason, he of course has at some moment got 3 marks on this tank. It was only a matter of time. This replay actually was the one that I disregarded in the last NBTT'ay replay video. But now you can still see it here, the actual highest experience earned of the badge 1.23 and 1.23.1 of course. So on the map Corelia, he actually does a similar thing, getting to a open location in order to cover several corners. However, with the artillery, it is a less viable option this time. And well, even though artillery shells aren't doing that much damage because, again, armor, he is being dwindling HP a bit more while standing at this location. And at some moment he has to move away before getting well, slowly but steadily destroyed by the enemy artillery. And he takes this moment when he sees that the Type 62 isn't really actively poking again. So he can move up a little bit without the Type 62 having a line of fire at him. And that way the Type 62 can only fire once at him. But instantly he returns the favor and destroys him. So the timing to move up was very correctly picked here. Because well, in that situation, simply moving up might be a loss of more hit points. Moving back might have done the same, being longer in the open, catching more arty shells. I think that the choice he made by waiting just a little bit longer until the Type 62 was out of sight, that he was going to move up with only taking 1 shot of damage. Now in his new location, he focused his front sight for a while, but at some moment he also checks his flank and catches the Tiger 1 off guard, showing the importance of checking your flanks on your position at some moments in order not to get surprised, especially if you are the only tank currently occupying a position. And another perma-track action right here, so getting the perma-track off the VK, getting additional damage in without getting fired back. Not that the VK could do much against him, of course, because armor, once again. But these tricks are so important in order to absolutely wreck enemy tanks without getting fired back. Fast firing guns are just able to keep tanks tracked for longer, because when you are tracked, getting the reset on the repairs is very simple. You can do it by ramming the tank or by any shot of damage. So especially for lightly armored vehicles, getting a perma-track off with being in a position that you can't be fired back at is just so strong. In the meantime, Tobie moves further up, does have a little bit of trouble with the Indian Panzer and gets a bit carried away, focusing down, but luckily the Indian Panzer has next to zero support from his team, while Tobie actually gets some support driving right behind him. And with some last pummel shots of those pesky artilleries leaving him on a one-shot, if he hadn't been moving from his initial first location in the open, he would have been dead by now. So once again, even the RT shots don't deal that much damage per shot. It will eventually get to you if you are in the open for too long. But this game is pretty much finished. Near the cap circle, he almost got killed by the EBR, but luckily he has once again, say it with me, armor, and instantly relocates in order to counter the EBR and show his dominance over it. So yet another game in the Turtle Mark 1 that for first glance looks like just moving up, shooting, taking shots and, well, in this case barely surviving. But again, the elevation from a 3000-4000 game is going to be a 6000 damage game, because Tobie was able to be alive for longer, because he quickly relocates from his initial open location at the exact right moment when the Type 62 wasn't looking, only receiving one shot of damage or that relocation instead of either several arty shells or multiple shots from the Type 62. Permatracks once again getting some extra damage from that, and he knew that the Indian Panzer was too isolated for any support of his enemy team, so Tobie was confident enough to full on rush in and destroy him, getting some extra damage also because of that. Bit of more risky plays right here, standing in the open, taking some more damage. But alongside with the skills and tricks that Tobie uses, his average statistics for the Turtle Mark 1 are with 222 fights, over 4000 WN8, 63 victories and 1417 experience on average, which is ridiculous, and especially with that amount of battles he played in that tank. With the average damage of 2800, of course these are some of the highlights of these games. And with these highlights I hope we are finally done. Keep showing the same guy with the same tank. Let's just move on towards the last replay, where we increase the tension of the game and also the caliber on the gun that we are going to see. So now we are watching Sifra GM playing in the famous Deathstar on the Oyster Bay map, and if you are listening closely, you know that this replay was recorded while the 1 GB sound pack modification was installed, so you will hear some special sound effects as well, and especially when you will hear this gun firing. Now it goes to the standard location, nothing special right there. Only a nice check up towards the other flank without moving his gun, without losing that accuracy with extra bloom, and that way he's able to get a shot of the Cobra and just take a closer listen to that sound. So after that, a short while later, he moves further up a bit more aggressively, because he has some backup opportunities against those enemy medium tanks, and that way he gets another juicy shot off. And by doing that, having that backup potential, he can just move a little bit back, relax and reload his mega gun. And shortly and steadily he moves further up the flank as more tanks are getting destroyed, and he also annihilates someone on the other side of the map. And eventually the team gets the entire upper left half of the map in control. Now while moving up you can either pick the Carrie, that is a one shot, but well, the full health Scorpion is also a one shot. And in tanks like the Deathstar and the Shitbarn, you can look for those full health one shots that those tier 8 tanks most of the time are, especially in Scorpion G. Takes an unfortunate shot from a hidden Waffentrigger right there, but returns the favor instantly. Immediately goes forward in order to make way for the enemy Deathstar, because he knows the damage that he can receive, and goes in after the enemy Deathstar fired, because of course he is reloaded faster. Quite a standard trick to use, just going in after an enemy is fired, but I still see a lot of players that are still a bit too scared if after an enemy tank has fired for some reason. It was a very viable option. A very unfortunate bounce right there. I don't really understand how that can happen. I mean, it was straight through the gun mantlet of that tank by the looks of it. But well, what now? What now against that slightly more mobile medium tank, in this case while still being reloading? Well, backing up against the wall, as well, he is still a turret, the tank destroyer, but he cannot fully rotate his turret. So by doing this, going up against the wall, he denies the potential to get outflanked, outcircled by the enemy medium tank, and is reloaded in time to finally finish off that pesky Iron Army. So now it's a 1 versus 1 with Sifra already having 7,000 damage with 5 kills, but he's also being a one shot, so he has to be a bit careful right now. So what would you do in this type of situation? Let me actually know in the comments, what would you do at this particular moment where Sifra is in a 1v1 being a one shot. Well, I'm going to tell you what Sifra is going to do in this particular situation. He is going to search a ambush location. A location that he can have overview of as many points, as many angles, as many flanks on this map, and actually catches out the 60 TP that way without being spotted. It is very important. He can potentially one shot him, but he low rolls unfortunately, and the 60 TP now definitely is a one shot. But at this moment I would really switch towards those AP shells. Having a way higher penetration value, he can confirm the kill on that 60 TP if he just has some flat side or flat armor that isn't angled for an auto ricochet. With the HE shells, it's a double-edged sword. HE shells can have more potential to pen and deal full-on damage, but they can also be hitting the side of the tank with 0 damage at all, being fully absorbed for some reason, not having those splash explosive effects anymore. But at this moment, he carefully awaits the arrival of the 60 TP, gets a bit antsy, shoots at... And the scenario that I portrayed actually happens. It looks like he just hit the tracks of that tank. Unfortunately, absorbing the round, getting the indicator that the armor was not hit. Well, of course, that is bullshit, but still an amazing game with, of course, well, whenever the Deathstar gets to unleash its potential, games like these over 8000 damage are nothing rare. However, we have definitely seen some good tricks right here for the Deathstar next to just sitting back and sniping. Those are more shitboard tactics, but going forwards, knowing that he can back up and fully reload without getting fired back. Going for the full health one-shots instead of focusing down the actual one-shot, the ones with 400 and lower HP, which is something that some competitive players are more focused on, because that is the way how it goes in either clan wars or strongholds or any competitive game. Focus down the low health first, but with the Deathstar in random battles you can surely take some shots against those full hit point tanks. Although I do wonder if it just is more valuable to do that also as well in in a competitive field, because the one shot is still a one shot for your teammate. So no, I think it's just a general consensus always goes for the potential one shot. And if the one shot is, well, full health or has a lot of health and isn't really the one with the lowest HP, I think in the Deathstar or shitbarn it's still valuable to take those targets out and let the actual one shots towards your teammates who are probably playing their chieftains objects. Well, you don't really see Deathstars and shitbarns in high competitive play, but whenever the opportunity arises for certain tactics to use those tanks, it's definitely something that I haven't thought about earlier. And with that, that's the end of this video. Hope you learned something. Hope you could handle that last train of thoughts that I just spout out right there. And I will see you next time. Laters.